Well, thank goodness we do have some Conservatives in our Liberal Party who are prepared to identify as such. Look at this terrific photo of a group last week in Parliament of Conservative Liberals and Nationals who actually stood there, had a beer, yes, a colonial beer, because the Marxists were trying to cancel it. I'm delighted to say there's many familiar outsider faces in that photo: Amanda Stoker, Matt Canavan, Craig Kelly and others. But I'm delighted to welcome for the first time Alex Antic, Senator from South Australia, to Outsiders. How are you, Alex?
Rowan, thanks for having me. I'm really well, really excited to be here, a great fan of the show. Thanks for having me on.
Well, anybody who's a great fan of the show, you've already won us over. Listen, tell us about the Charles Kingston statue. We've been talking about people banning things stupidly more often than not. Tell us about what's happening there in South Australia.
Well, look, it has been, and it's been a strange month, hasn't it, in terms of these, PC attacks on culture. I mean, it's a little bit like we missed out on the Tokyo Olympics, but we've been having the Virtue Olympics ever since. And if they were giving out gold medals in the Virtue Olympics, this at least alleged attack on the statue of Charles Kingston here in Victoria Square would go close to getting a gold medal. The call has been put out in the last week or so that there may be a call to pull down some of Adelaide's statues as well by certain BLM protesters, and they've seemingly in an arbitrary fashion picked on poor old Charles Kingston, who seems to have only offended insofar as he was the Premier who presided over the introduction of the vote to females, and was also quite progressive in terms of some of his reformist tax agenda. His biggest crime seems to be simply being an old bloke sitting on a plinth in the middle of the city. So I don't know how far that one will get. Certainly, if I've got anything to say about it, it won't get very far at all, I can assure you. But look, it's been a product of the last month. It's been bizarre.
Well, you made a great speech to the Senate the other day. Of course, it was empty. There was nobody there. All the ratbags had gone home, I presume, about this cancel culture and how you view it, and you said some terrific things. But, James, a quick question there for Alex.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on the Kingston statue thing and ask, isn't really, do you think, the point of this that we can't acknowledge Kingston's good things that he did, I bring the vote to women, because in doing so we might suggest that actually white men can also do good things for equality, and that's just terrible for the narrative?
Well, look, I think that's been the vexed position of a lot of these. I mean, we all know that pulling down statues is not the answer. We need to learn from history's mistakes where they are. And look, in many instances, some of the people that are being targeted have done very, very good things. In the case of Charles Kingston, I'm not actually sure what he's done wrong at all, other than being a historical figure. But certainly it would seem being an old bloke with a beard sitting in the middle of the city in bronze now makes you almost an endangered species in this day and age. So,
Well, amongst the political party that's been cheering on this idiocy is the Greens, and they've actually been talking about the notion of defunding the police and they were debating it in the upper house. Tell us about that, because I think about 95%, if not more, of Australians would be absolutely alarmed that politicians paid good money are debating the merits of defunding the police.
Well, that's right. Look, this actually seems to have originated in the New South Wales upper house. There seems to have been some comments there from one of their legislative councillors. And like a lot of this trendyism, green politics, it seems to be an infection from the United States. Now, quite why it is that anyone would think that it's reasonable to even suggest defunding the police anywhere, let alone in this country. We've got 80,000 police officers, and 9,000 of them per annum are injured on the line of in the line of duty. That's about one an hour. So Senator Matt Canavan asked that the Senate note all of these things and asked that it distance itself from this ridiculous notion. I co-sponsored it. A number of people did. In fact, I've never seen so many members of the Senate stand up and want to have their name put to this motion because it was so realistic. It ended up getting voted 52 to 8, and I'll give you each a chance to tell us which 8 were that didn't support it and therefore indicated tacit endorsement for defunding the police. I mean, you know, what do they think is going to happen next time their house gets broken into or, you know, their bag gets snatched? I mean, you know, these are the people that are putting their lives at risk, and it's outrageous.
Well, this ridiculous
Senator
Senator Nick McKim. Yeah, you go, Rita.
Yes, Senator McKim is saying, I mean, he seems to be advocating for defunding the police, and he voted along those lines. He's saying that, you know, that money should be going to things that are genuine public goods. Again, do they not see that the police are a public good, that they, the people who are most vulnerable in lower socioeconomic areas are the ones most dependent on the police? It really is quite remarkable. But do you think this is going to damage the Greens at all, their anti-police record, or are their supporters on board with this sort of philosophy?
Well, look, you know, of all of the questions I could possibly be asked, being delved into the line of the psyche of Greens politicians was not one I was expecting. But I can say to you that, you know, if we were giving out medals, I'd give that one a bronze medal in the Virtue Olympics. Look, I think in Nick's defence, Senator McKim's defence, he was trying to find a careful and nuanced way to justify supporting what was not supporting what was a very reasonable position, and therefore supporting what was a very unreasonable position, which was defunding the police. I don't get it. I don't get it. It seems almost, you know, one side says one thing and the other one's got to jump up and down. You know, just once it'd be nice to... I never get a chance to speak to these people because they're never sitting next to me. So one day it'll happen.
As I said, the chamber was empty when you were making your excellent speech. In your speech, you referred to this hideous cancel culture and this almost medieval practice of deplatforming people on social media so they no longer exist. They're tossed out of the public square. Just tell us a little bit more about that, Alex.
Yeah, look, I think, I mean, the point of the speech was really almost a rallying cry for Australians, for them to, and we know that most Australians think all of this cancel culture stuff is nonsense. So it's really important, I think, that people do get up and say what they're thinking, and that is that they need to say to businesses when they're you know, endorsing something like BLM, which we know has roots in a neo-Marxist, anarchist style of politics, that they need to make that known. Now, the difficulty is that we're seeing this increasingly throughout the United States, that the vehicles for doing that are getting closed over by the likes of Twitter and YouTube and even Google, who indulge in this practice of deplatforming. Also, universities will sometimes take away people's right to speak. And that's becoming increasingly apparent in the United States. And of course, as I've said, we do get infected by some of that leftist politics here in this country. It's a real worry. And of course, we do joke about all of these things, and we need to. I think we need to call out some of this lunacy. But of course, there's a very serious edge to all of this as well. And this incursion into freedom of speech, into liberty, we saw through the Me Too movement that the rule of law was thrown over the shoulder like an old textbook. These are very serious matters. We've come a long way in this country. We've worked really hard to get into a position where we've got a system that works, and we don't need selfie stick wielding Instagram heroes destroying it for the rest of us. Aussies have got to be heard on this.
James.
I'm glad to hear that you mentioned humour in all of that, because I think, you know, we here at Outsiders are big fans of using humour and mockery to puncture the balloons of these self-righteous enforcers of the woke. But I was really glad also to see you and some of your colleagues, including our friend Amanda Stoker, having a Colonial beer there and standing up publicly. Is this the beginning of maybe a sort of a Wolverines of political correctness sort of group in the Senate to try and counter some of this lunacy that's out there?
Well, look, there are some great people involved in that photo, and I say most of them didn't bat an eyelid at the opportunity to have a beer after hours. But we had Gerard Rennick, Tony Passon, Amanda Stoker, as you said, James Patterson, Senator Canavan, Perrin Davies, some really good people. I probably missed a couple there; they'll get angry with me. But look, I hope so. I think, you know, I once heard it said, and certainly Senator Canavan is very, very good at this. This opportunity of poking fun at some of this stuff. You might remember when the Greens put up a hot air balloon last year over Parliament House, and, you know, he used it as an opportunity to thank them for showing the benefits of natural gas and plastic products and all that sort of stuff. I think that's where it has to go. I mean, I think there is a tendency to drift into the humorous, but I think we need to, because some of this stuff needs to be pointed out. And I think it comes from from Australians. And look, the corporations are going to have to take some responsibility for this as well. I think we're all a bit tired of being told what to think by Gillette, and we saw what happened with them. They lost $8 billion in the transaction. I think that message needs to get through. If we're going to be told about toxic masculinity, just sell me a razor. You know, I don't need it.
Fantastic. Alex Antic, so great to have you on Outsiders for the first time, but it by no means will be the last. I can guarantee you that. Coming up, thanks so much, mate. Coming up.